everybody, this is Jim and Paul with your weekly lineup. Starting on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have the Twisted Southern Horror Queen with Arthur Lynn Gibson. And at 9 o'clock, we have Chit Chat with Kathy and Jean. At 10 o'clock, we have Straight Talk with Matt Hazley.
And on Tuesdays at 8 p.m., we have Cosmopolitans with Lauren. At 9 p.m., we have Talk Time with Val. And at 10 p.m., we have Rock Talk with Amy Shafalo.
On Wednesdays at 8 p.m., we got Whiskey, Cars, and Cigars with your host, Johnny Blender. At 9 o'clock, we got Sports Insider with Glenn Spillman. At 10 o'clock, we got Get Your Swollen On with Randy and Mike. And at 11 o'clock, we got Straight Talk with Matt Hazley.
And on Thursday nights at 8 p.m., we have Pod Talk with Jim and Paul. At 9 p.m., we have Podcast University with Harrison and Ben. And at 10 p.m., we have Night Talk with Joe Rocks. And at 11 p.m., we have Just a Thought with Hans and Victor. And at midnight, it's Trudy Light.
And on Fridays at 8 p.m., we have Summer 13 Films with Glenn and Sean. At 9 o'clock, we have Sports Insider with Glenn Spillman. And at 10 o'clock, we have Straight Talk with Matt Hazley. That's your weekly lineup. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Talk Time with Val. And tonight we are going to discuss credit cards. Now, Jimmy, you know how I started working with a financial group recently? Hey, Jimmy, are you there?
What about them?
Okay, so I've been learning some really interesting things, and I thought I'd share them with our listeners. So, obviously, you know what a credit card is. Most people should know what a credit card is. You know, generally a credit card may seem like just another tool to help you make purchases, but it can be so much more. When a credit card is used responsibly, a credit card can help you build a good credit history, allowing you to get loans at favorable interest rates, cheaper insurance, and even a new cellular plan. Credit cards can also help you earn rewards on your everyday purchases and protect those purchases in case of theft or damage. Simply put, a credit card can be a lot more useful than your debit card if you use it the right way. If you don't use it the right way, you're pretty much screwed. So, let's get right into this. What is a credit card? A credit card looks just like a debit card. However, instead of having the funds removed directly from your checking account when you make a purchase, you will essentially take on a short-term loan. This loan may or may not accrue interest depending on when you pay it off. For the purchases made at any given billing cycle, which is around 30 days, you will have a small grace period before your payment is due. If you pay the balance in full by that date, you won't have to pay interest. If you pay less than the entire balance by the due date, you will accrue interest on your average daily balance. So why should you get a credit card? Seriously. Because John asked me that question a couple of years ago, right? Credit cards can be a trap for a lot of people. People tend to take out a credit card, they have a bill, and then a hard time hits, and instead of being able to pay off the balance on the card, they're paying basically a lot of money on interest and very little towards the principal. Principal is basically the amount that you've actually spent or borrowed from the card. And instead of actually paying off on the principal of the account, a lot of people spend a lot of money paying the interest rates alone. So you may ask, why should I get a credit card? Credit cards come with numerous benefits. First, and perhaps most important, a credit card is a good tool to help you build your credit. Good credit can help you obtain future loans, like a mortgage, at the most favorable rates. It can also help you get approved for an apartment or a cell phone, avoid utility deposits, and get lower insurance premiums. Aside from credit building, credit cards may have many other perks. Many cards offer cash or travel rewards, generally between 1% and 2% of your purchase price. Some cards have shopping or travel benefits that will save you money, like purchase protection, price protection, extended warranty, rental car insurance, and so much more. Some cards have a 0% interest on purchases or balance transfers for 12 to 18 months. When you get a card, check your benefit statements for details. Now, the difference between a secured and unsecured credit card, what is it? Jimmy, do you know?
No.
There are two primary types of credit cards, a secured credit card and an unsecured credit card. Secured credit cards are backed by a cash deposit generally equal to the card's limits. That acts as a collateral and removes the risk of non-payment for the card issuer. Secured credit cards are great options for those who have not built a solid credit history yet. Secured cards aren't the same as prepaid cards. With a secured card, your cash deposit doesn't run out as you spend, as it does with a prepaid card. You'll make payments the same way as you would with an unsecured card, and you'll pay interest if you don't pay off your balance in full. Once you transition to an unsecured card or cancel your secured card, you'll receive your deposit back, provided you've paid off the balance. Unsecured credit cards aren't backed by a cash deposit or any other collateral. You'll get a credit limit based on your income level and credit history, so most likely your first card's limit will be low. Issuers take on more risk when they approve unsecured cards. Because of this, those without credit history generally need to start with a secured card or get an unsecured card with a cosigner. Alternatively, you can ask to be added to a relative or friend's credit account as an authorized user. As an authorized user, you'll be able to use a credit card and will likely benefit from the primary cardholder's good credit habits, but you won't be legally obligated to pay the balance. So how does a grace period work? One of the many benefits of using a credit card is that you essentially get an interest-free loan and a grace period of between 21 and 25 days. Here's how it works. Say you have a credit card period of January 5th through February 4th, with a due date of March 1st. Any purchases made within the period can be made interest-free until the payment due date. If you don't pay your balance in full on or before March 1st, you'll owe interest on your average daily balance. So, how is the credit card interest actually calculated? Many people think that credit card interest is assessed on the card balance remaining after the payment due date. However, if you don't pay your balance in full, you will accrue interest on your average daily balance during the month. Say you have a card balance of $1,000. On day 11 of accruing interest, you pay off $200. Then, on day 21 of accruing interest, you pay off another $350. Your average daily balance would be $750. If the card's annual percentage rate, or APR, is 20%, the periodic interest rate is 0.0548%. Your periodic interest rate is calculated by dividing your APR by 365, basically the days in the year. Multiply your average daily balance by the periodic interest rate and the number of days in the month to get the interest accrued for the month. In our case, the interest accrued on that balance would be $12.33. To avoid accruing interest, you need to pay the new balance on your credit card statement each month. The minimum payment is enough to keep you in good standing, but paying interest is unnecessary if you spend within your means. Keep in mind, if you take a cash advance, you may have to pay a higher interest rate and you won't have the benefit of a grace period. You may also have to pay an increased penalty rate if you make a late payment or spend more than your credit limit. You'll be able to find these alternative rates on your card issuer's website. So let's stop there for a second. We've all heard horror stories about credit cards. The fact is that a credit card can be a gift, a godsend. It can also be a trap, a devil's trap. Let's say You go to a college campus, and you're brand new on campus, and you haven't had any previous knowledge of, basically adult finances, right? You've been a kid before. Mom and dad have taken care of everything. You get to this college campus, excuse me, and there's a bunch of companies there, and they're like, hey, Jimmy, come over here. We'll give you okay, what is your favorite college, Jimmy? Like for basketball or football or something?
College? I don't know, BC.
Excuse me, BC?
Yeah.
And what is their team?
Boston College Eagles.
Okay, so let's say Jimmy's at Boston College, and while he's there are 3 or 4 credit card companies who are set up on campus, and they call you over and they're like, hey, Jimmy, come over here, man. Or, hey, dude, come over here. What's your name? And you say, Jimmy. And they say, hey, Jimmy, if you sign up for this credit card, you probably won't get it, but I'll give you a free Boston College Eagles blanket, a Boston College Eagles sweatshirt. They give you swag, right? Now, as an 18-year-old kid, Jimmy, what are you going to do? Are you going to sign up for something that you probably won't get anyway just to get the swag? Yeah. Most kids would. Most people would. So you sign up for this credit card, and then bam shot, you get it. But here's the thing. You get this credit card, and it's brand new, and what do you do as a kid without realizing what's going on? You start spending. So concert tickets here, maybe you pay for your burger there, buy some books, take your girlfriend out, treat your buddies to some beers, whatever it might be, right? Buy yourself a PlayStation, because why not? You have the credit. And then at the end of the month, the 3 credit cards that you've applied for and got are sending you a statement. And what is the statement? $2,500. Okay? Or $3,000 because you've racked up $1,000 on each. Well, on that $3,000, you, a college kid with no income, now have to find a means to pay off the minimum payment. Right? What is the minimum payment? Minimum payment is the smallest amount of money you can pay each month without damaging your payment history and incurring a late payment fee. So there's a couple of different ways of calculating a minimum payment, but primarily there are 2 that are used. One is the percentage method. The other one is the percentage plus interest plus fees method. Let's go with the percentage method. So your issuer may calculate your minimum payment based on a percentage of your balance. This generally between 1% and 3%. So if you have a balance of $3,000 and the minimum payment is 2% of your balance, you will have to pay a minimum of $60 to stay in good standing. Because it's 2% of the $3,000, right? So, and this is just a random number. This is not exactly, this is not rating any credit card. So, Jimmy, on that $3,000, you're going to pay $60, right? You pay that $60, but you still have that $3,000 there, don't you? And you realize, holy crap, every month now I have to pay $60, but I also have to pay off the money that I've spent, this $3,000. So what do you do, Jimmy? What would you do?
Tear up the credit card.
It doesn't throw if you tear up the credit card, you still owe the money.
Yeah, I know, but you will stop you from getting more.
What do you do? So you'll cut the credit cards up so that you're not tempted to use them again, okay? But what would you do to pay it off?
You give a big principal.
Okay, but you don't have any money. So now you gotta go find a job, right?
Or get another credit card.
And that is what people do. Perfect answer. Because that is what people do. So they go and they get another credit card. And they put the 3 balances on that credit card and they say, okay, now this is how the other credit card gets you. Now, the fact is that with $3,000 on 3 different credit cards, $1,000 each at 18 years old with no income coming in, the only way you're getting another credit card is if somebody offers it to you. If you go looking for one, you probably won't get it, right? And the only way you're going to get that is if you have a good credit score. At 18 years old, you really haven't built a credit score, right? So a subpar lender is going to approach you and send you out saying, hey, we see you got a credit score of 640. So I'm going to send you the option, and here's what you can do. For 15 months, you're going to be at 0% interest rate, and you can transfer your balance. Now, you're thinking to yourself, hey, in 15 months, I can make a dent on this thing, right? I have 0% interest to pay. What is the catch? Well, the catch is that in order to transfer the funds over, you have to pay 3% on average of that $3,000. And that's only $90. So you're thinking, I can do that, right? You pay them $90 and you transfer your balance over, the full $3,000 off of 3 credit cards onto this new account. For 15 months, you have 0% interest to pay, or for 5 months, or whatever they give you. Now, here's the other thing they do. You're thinking, I got this time to pay. If I pay $60 a month, which is what I would have paid on the interest of the other cards, multiplied by, let's say, 15 months, that's $900, right? So you're thinking, that's $900 I can pay off without having ever touched the principal on the account. Here's how they get you. So you pay that $90, or you pay that 3% of the amount that is owed, and then you pay a promotional fee, like, oh God, what is it called? A membership fee. So your membership fee might be $100, right? Or $99 usually. So you have $99 plus the $90 to transfer. That's $189, right? So from the $189, you now also, after the 15 months, your interest rate that was at 20% is now 37 to 40%. So instead of that $60 being able to pay the minimum, you're now paying a minimum of $80 or $120. And that's how they get you. So what do? You're right, Jimmy. Transferring the rate makes sense. But it only makes sense if you're going to pay enough to use their program, their 15 months. So at $3,000, and you're going to pay that off in 15 months, you're going to have to pay $200 a month. But you're going to have to factor in the fact that you're paying a $100 membership fee and a $90 transfer fee. So it now becomes $189 plus $3,189, and that has to be divided by the 15 months. So $212. That covers 12 months and an extra, let's say, $3. So you're paying on average $215 a month through this credit card to pay it off in time. Is that doable if you're a college kid? Yes. Is it doable if you rack up $15,000 in debt? No. So, credit cards can be a great asset. It can also be a great liability. Here's what happens as well. So things are going good. You have a good job. You can make your payments on your card. You're paying off your card. And this happens to a lot of people. I would say the majority of people. So what happens? Something comes, some hard times hit, and you need to get a cash advance on your card. Or you actually make a bulk purchase on your card, and you're unable to pay it off right away. The interest starts accruing. Instead of paying, if you're paying $150 a month, 87 of those dollars are going towards interest on some of these high rate cards. So what you're actually paying, instead of paying the $150 and thinking, hey, I have $3,000 there, if I pay $150, it's going to take me so long. Nope, it's not. It's going to take you longer. Because instead of actually paying that $150, what is actually going towards your principal is $63. Take note of that, people. Out of $150, only $63 is going towards the principal, towards that $3,000. The rest is eaten up in interest rates. How sick is that, Jimmy?
That's why I tore them up.
Now here's the thing. You may ask, well, that's just, you may be tempted to say that's just robbery, right? So why is it that credit card companies charge such an exorbitant rate? Do you know?
For the people that don't pay.
Exactly. Because there are a lot of deadbeats out there. And I don't care if you're a lawyer, a doctor, a judge, a minister. The fact is, if you can rack up a $100,000 bill, a $200,000 bill, or a $1,000 bill, it doesn't matter what the amount is, and then you say, well, I can't pay, so I'm going to rack up as much money as I can, and then I'm going to file for Chapter 7, so my credit gets restarted, and my debts are all cancelled off. And then what do? You file for Chapter 7, and that money, that's not free money. Remember back in, what was it, 2005, when the economy crashed and the government issued a ton of bailouts for big banks? I think like Citibank and stuff, Chase foreclosed on a ton of houses and homes and stuff. You remember that, Jimmy?
No.
You don't remember a giant economic crash?
Yeah, the housing bubble. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about... I'm echoing through you. I'm talking about there was a giant economic crash that occurred and the government had to bail out big banks. You don't remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Right, that would be the housing bubble.
Is it referred to as the housing bubble, John? I'd never heard of it. Okay, I guess you're right, Jimmy. I'd never heard it referred to like that. So anyway, when those bailouts came up, right? The reason those bailouts came up was because of all the unsecured loans that were out there and people weren't paying. And then everything crashed and the banks were overextended and they could not afford, if they had closed, and if like Chrysler had closed and everything else, it would have impacted the economy so severely that, you know, it was worse than the Great Depression, basically. Because it would have impacted the economy so severely that people would not be able to buy food. Prices would skyrocket, jobs would go down, there would be massive unemployment, it would be horrendous, right? So the government did the bailout. It was the only recourse it could do. But after that happened, they required banks, so that they never had to do the bailout again, they have now required that the banks have a security fund established. Let's say you're a guy or a gal who has decided you can't pay your bill, you're going to rack up this credit card bill, and sometimes it's a hard time that's hit. You know, you're 84 and you're trying to go back to work because, you know, whatever happened. I mean, that's a sad case. Sometimes you're just a deadbeat trying to play the system. You know, whatever it is. Every one of those dollars, let's say it is $100 million, right? That people don't pay off on their credit cards for this one bank, whatever bank it might be. Let's just say it's $100 million. That bank is not just taking a loss for $100 million. No, they can sell the debt, and typically selling the debt is like, it makes no more sense to them anymore, because it doesn't make sense anymore because they're still responsible for the debt after they've sold it. That's the law. So if they sell the debt for 11 cents on the dollar, instead of making back $100 million, they might make back $11 million, or sometimes 8 cents on the dollar, you know, for an immediate payoff. So you're selling $100 million in debt, you're making $8 million, but you're taking a loss. So what the government has done is said, hey, every single month you calculate the amount of money that you think will go into charge-off, and charge-off is the term that simply means accounts that cannot be collected on, money that has been lost, right? You calculate the amount every month and it accrues, and you have to have that money in reserve to protect your bank because we, the government, are not bailing you out anymore. So now instead of just losing $100 million from those accounts, they now have to put another $100 million in a separate account that cannot. That account is literally a mattress, like, in your bed. They can't touch that money. That money cannot make interest for them. That money cannot be used by the bank. It is in a separate private account being held, like simply stuffing bills in your mattress, just in case it's needed for that bailout. So the bank loses double. Now you might think $8 million sounds like a lot to regain, but it's not. The companies that are trying to buy the debt, they're offering the bank 8 cents on the dollar because they might make 20 cents on the dollar. Like, let's say, Jimmy, you had a Kohl's credit card, or what is a big store up by you, Boston Market or something?
Store?
Yeah, give me a big department store by you.
Macy's.
Okay, so let's say you had a Macy's card, Jimmy, and you decided that you were going to go do some intense shopping at Macy's, and you rack up a $10,000 credit card bill or a $20,000 credit card bill, right? Apparently Jimmy's been buying diamonds for the girls. Is that right, Jimmy?
No, thanks. I can find other things to spend it on.
Well, $20,000 credit card bill, and you realize, hey, you know what? I've been paying the interest on this. I can't pay the bill. Tough times have hit. What am I going to do? So you call the store and you're trying to work out a plan for them. Macy's have written off the loss because you've already gotten their money. You've already gotten their merchandise, right? The bank has to bite that because Macy's is not underwriting their own credit card. There is a bank that's underwriting the credit card. So that bank might now sell that account to somebody else, or maybe the store puts the account with a third-party collector. What does that collector do? They know you cannot pay the $20,000. So they're going to call you and they're going to be counting you, and you might set up payment plans for the next 5 years, and they might give you like a little interest rate. Like, let's say if they gave you like a 4.99% interest rate and you had a $20,000 debt. Let's see, that would be 0.02, right, John? For about 5%, 4.99.
Yeah.
Okay. So your monthly payment over a 5-year period for 60 months would be $400 to pay off the $20,000, right? Let's say you just simply can't make that $400 payment. Because if you could, you'd probably be paying your credit card bill. What do? You call this third party and you say, hey, peoples, we want to negotiate a settlement. And the people who have bought the debt from Macy's or from whatever company it is are going to say, all right, to themselves, they're thinking, okay, so this debt is worth $20,000, but in actuality, I paid 8 cents on the dollar for this debt, right? So I actually only paid, let's see. No, I only paid $16,000. No, not even $4,000.
8 cents on the dollar, Neil?
Oh yeah, 8 cents on the dollar. $1,600. Sorry, John's right. So I only paid $1,600 for this debt. All right, they're gonna talk to you, and you're gonna say, if I were to come to you and say, okay, Jimmy, I'll tell you what, I'll do you a big favor. You owe $20,000. Pay me $10,000, and we'll do this thing. You're going to say, hot damn! Yeah, I can make $200 a month for the next 60 months, right? And pay it off. You're going to find a way to do it, right, Jimmy? Because they just canceled $10,000 of your debt.
Right.
So you're going to pay $200 a month for the next 60 months on a 5% interest rate. They're going to make extra money, basically a $10,000 settlement or whatever, and you win. The debt settlement company or the third-party company, the people who bought the debt, wins, but the bank literally made, what is it, $800 on that? $20,000?
Off of what?
Well, if you buy it for, $1,600.
$1,600.
The bank made $1,600 on that $20,000 because they couldn't invest in trying to run you down for the money. So what the banks are now doing is, because they have to have that bailout money separate, they are trying to get you to work with them to pay it off before it goes to third-party collections so that they can recoup some of the money. The reason your credit card interest rates are so high, my dear people, is because of the people who play the system and file for bankruptcy or use fake social security numbers, or what else have you seen, John? To get out of paying their debts.
They use their grandparents.
Oh, yes. And this I think is elderly abuse, and this makes me sick. There are people who will use their parents and their grandparents. They will get them to get a credit card or sign up for a credit card that's billed to them, and they intercept the bills because while they technically do not have power of attorney, or even if they do, they will rack up a bill in that person's name. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No. They have power of attorney. They're responsible.
Not in the state of Missouri.
Yes. Check that. Yes, they are.
We did. We had a case. They are responsible according to federal law.
If the credit card is taken out after they take over,
exactly,
they are responsible.
If the credit card is issued after they have power of attorney, then they are responsible. If the debt is before, even the day before, they are no longer responsible.
That's true.
So we've had cases. Well, let me not talk about that. But I'm saying there have been cases of people who take out, or they issue this card and then they run up this debt. And the debt is ongoing even after they have power of attorney because they're not responsible for it because the contract was legally signed before they had power of attorney. So what do? They rack up a huge debt, and when that person dies, they're no longer responsible for it. They are no longer responsible for it.
No longer responsible for it.
Well, yeah, even before they died, they're no longer responsible. But what does the company do? Call and badger and harass, and it gets sent to third party. And these poor older people are left out in the cold wondering what the heck just happened. You know, it's elderly abuse and fraud, but it occurs within people's own families because they're like, well, you know, it's no skin off my teeth, the bank can afford it. No. What it is people living high off the hog and other people suffering for it. There's action and consequence in this world. But of course, selfish people will always be what? Selfish. Excuse me. So, if you're wondering why you can't get a 4.99% interest rate on your credit card, the reason you can't get it is because you are paying for the privilege of having that money advanced to you at a loan rate, and you have to cover the deadbeats out there.
That's for now. In the courts, but people are complaining that they should not.
Oh, John, they can't hear you. You gotta speak louder.
It's in the courts that they should not have to suffer for those people. So they're trying to get the interest rate back where it was, so that if they've had great credit for the last 5 years or 8 years, that there should be a scale saying that we are allowed to have this percentage.
And technically, most large banks do that anyway. We have people on our books who have a 4% interest rate on their credit card because they have an over 820 score. Right?
Yeah, but they're trying to get so there's a scale.
So that there's a scale, a set scale for other banks to use. Now, there's a difference between the banks doing this, legitimate banks, and other companies, subpar credit lenders. We're going to discuss that difference when we return from commercial because we got to pay those bills after these messages.
A big noise playing in the street, gonna be a big man someday. You got mud on your face, you big disgrace, kicking your can all over the place.
Are you hangry? Know the signs. Uncontrollable yelling.
Why aren't you egg rolls?
Hallucination.
Sushi.
Pants discomfort.
I hate you, pants.
Hangry. It can happen to anyone. Fortunately, there's E24, the app that tells hunger to shut up.
Egg rolls. Thanks, Snoop.
E24. In my medical opinion, it's the best way to order food online, baby.
Hey everyone, I want to tell you all about an amazing salon. Joyce's, located at 132 Ferry Street in Everett, Massachusetts. Joyce's specializes in the latest techniques in coloring, styling, cutting, and beach waves. Joyce's features Sukesha all-natural nutrient products in organic color. Joyce's full-service spa and salon, located at 132 Ferry Street, Everett, Massachusetts. 617-387-6688. Specializing in you.
Hi, my name is Amrita Rupnarayan, aka Valanissima. Amrita means ambrosia or nectar of the gods. Valanissima means seeker of divine knowledge. Join me every Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for a night talk with Joe Rocks, exclusively on TuneIn Satellite on Armed Radio Global Network, where we will discuss food, culinary arts, baking, cooking, food preparation and presentation, bringing you a little bit of the divine knowledge so you can create your own nectar of the gods.
Plan your visit to Savino Vineyards in Woodbridge, Connecticut today. It's a family-owned and operated vineyard that grows premium grapes on 8 acres of land and produces a fine selection of wine on-site in a historic barn. Savino Vineyards is a bronze medal winner in the Amenti del Vino International Wine Competition, and wine tastings are only $7. Visit SavinoVineyards.com to find out more, and follow Savino Vineyards on Facebook. That's SAVINO Vineyards. Or call 203-389-2050 for more information.
Hi, and welcome back to this week's episode of Talk Time with Val. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Valanissima, and tonight we are discussing credit cards, credit card debt, credit card interest rates, and basically general banking practices. Now, before the break, we were discussing the difference between a legitimate bank and a subpar credit lending firm or company. Now, I would like to remind all my listeners that this show, Talk Time with Valanissima, brought to you by Armed Radio Global, the views and opinions expressed during my show are mine and mine alone. They are not weighted by they are not the views and opinions of Armed Radio Global or of Jimmy or of anybody else affiliated with Armed Radio Global. That being said, I will attempt to not say the names of companies, but let's discuss this. So my husband is a pretty smart guy, right? And we were talking about subpar lending companies or practices as adverse to legitimate banks. Where are you going? I was going to ask you some questions, dude.
Oh, I'm supposed to so I can listen.
No, just stick around. Stay right here in the studio. So, here's the question. How would you tell a subpar lending company? How would you have my listeners differentiate a subpar lending company from a legitimate bank? What would be the method?
Who backs their bank up? First question, who backs you up?
And what if you can't ask a question? What if you just receive a piece of mail that offers you some fantastic 0% down, 15%?
Get online and check it. You gotta research it.
Right. And here's the thing. We discussed the catches earlier. So the catches could be something as simple as your interest rate. If you read the back of the notice they sent you, some of them charge between 37 and 65% interest rate. Right? And they're like, you're never going to have to pay that. All you're going to do is pay off your balance. You never have to pay that. Some of them will offer you a 0% interest rate, but they'll give you a $500 credit line, Jimmy, or a $5,000 credit line. Here's the catch. On that $5,000 credit line, in order to have the 0% interest rate, you've already agreed to pay upfront in the fine print $2,000. Did you have $2,000 to begin with? Did you have $200 to begin with? No. So you're going to use your card, and until you've started making payments on that money, you're pretty much screwed. So now you've just incurred $2,000 more of debt, and you have no way of paying it off. What's another way that they catch you? The high interest rates, we've discussed that. Most creditable companies will not charge you a fee, a membership fee. So if you have a credit card that's charging you a membership fee, you need to ask why. Why are you charging me a fee for this? If you have a credit card that says non-negotiable, it's not a legitimate company. Because you should be able to negotiate your rates. You should be able to call and say, hey, I got a mortgage like a couple years ago, right? Or a year and a half ago. And it's on my credit statement still, but it's only there because I had 7 hits to my credit score because I was shopping around for my mortgage. It stays on your credit report for 2 years. You should be able to go to them and say, I've been paying on my card, significantly every month, and I've been paying towards the principal, but the interest rates are killing me. Do me a favor and renegotiate my rate. They will renegotiate your rate for you or with you. They might not drop it by a lot at first. They might drop it by 5%. But you know what? What is 5% of a dollar, Jimmy?
20 cents.
No, 5% of a dollar. 1% of a dollar. Oh,
sorry. 5%.
You're right, 20 cents. I was going to say $100 and I said a dollar. What is 5% of $100, Jimmy?
$5.
$5. What is 5% of $1,000? $50. 5% of, and that $50 on that $1,000 adds up. So if you have $4,000 in credit card debt and they drop it by just that amount, by 5%, that is $200 less that you're paying. That's significant. It might not seem like a lot, but it is significant. And you know what? If you keep paying and they see that you're working the principal down, they'll drop it another 5%. Maybe another 5%. You have to call and ask them. You get what I mean, peoples? So we were discussing 11 things that you should know about credit cards, right? We left it off at how the minimum payments were determined. Now, we were talking about credit scores here, Jimmy. How does a credit card affect your credit score? Do you know?
Yeah, it does.
But how does it? Everybody knows it does.
Usually negatively.
Actually, quite positively. Before John and I got the house, I took out a card. Well, he took out a card. And what we did is we built his credit score up with that card and all we did was this. We have to pay our gas, our electric, our charter bill, our cable and phone and those bills every month anyway, right? And sometimes we would pay a day or two late or maybe a week late depending on the payment cycle, like your salary cycle coming in every 2 weeks. So what would we do? We took this credit card out, and let's say our payment date's on the 15th of every month for each of those bills. And our credit card payment date is the 9th or the 20th of each month for those, or 21st of each month. What we would do is we would take the credit card, we would pay the amount that all the bills were due, so they're never late, we never have interest rates or fees or anything on the bills. And then when we got paid on the 19th, on the 21st, we would pay off the credit card in full. That was money we were going to spend on the bills anyway, right? Paid it off in full, never had to pay a lick of interest. We never had $1 out of pocket at that point. So what we ended up doing, by doing that, within 6 months, Jimmy, the unsecured card that was like $300 or $400 or something, the credit line extended was $4,000 at that point. And the reason that happened is because we were paying it off in full each time. We used a credit card to build a credit score. Now, how does a credit card affect your credit score? Credit cards can affect your credit score in several ways. Before we get into the specifics, you need to take a look at the 5 factors that go into your FICO score. You know what your FICO score is, right? Jimmy?
What are you talking about?
Do you know what your FICO score is?
No, I don't even know what it is.
Okay. So, FICO and Vantage Score each use a proprietary formula designed to predict how likely you are to repay a loan or a credit card balance as agreed. Alright? And FICO is more widely used by lenders. The Vantage Score, however, is gaining traction with both consumers and lenders. The differences in FICO and Vantage Score, let's see, include how paid-off conditions are treated. So FICO is, as we said, it's used by lenders to determine, it's a proprietary formula that determines and designs, it predicts how you will pay off your credit. That's all it is, okay? So there are 5 factors that go into your FICO score. The most widely used scoring model among lenders today is your FICO score. What are the 5 things? Payment history. Payment history accounts for 35% of your FICO score. What is your FICO score? It is just a formula that they use to determine how much of a risk you are. Are you a good risk, Jimmy, or am I a better risk than you? Right?
You're a better risk than me.
But you get what I'm saying. You know, it's how they determine who to lend money to or who to lend more money to. You and I, Jimmy, might make the same amount of money, but who's going to be more responsible about paying it back? You get what I mean? That's what they look at.
Not I.
So 35% of your FICO score is made up of your payment history. 30% is made up of credit utilization. 15% is the length of your credit history. 10% is the types of accounts in use. and 10% is new credit. So using a credit card can affect your credit score in several ways, either positively or negatively. You can positively affect the most important credit score factor, payment history, by making your payments on time 100% of the times. A late credit card payment likely won't be reported within a few days, but it can be reported to the bureaus and hurt your score. Credit utilization, or the percentage of your credit limit that you're using at any given time, is the second most important FICO score factor. We will discuss how to calculate this in the next little bit, but essentially you should try to keep your debt balance below 30% of your credit limit. So if you have a $3,000 credit limit, you want to keep it under $1,000. Be safe, keep it under $800. Use $800 of it and not more than that. The ages of your newest and oldest accounts, as well as the average length of all of your credit accounts, make up your length of credit history. So the longer, the better. Basically, if you have a card that you've been using for, let's say you've had Jimmy, what's a gas station up by you?
Sunoco.
Let's say you've had a Sunoco gas card for the last 20 years, Jimmy, right? And basically you use the gas card for points and rewards because it gives you 10 cents off the gallon, so you use it every time, but then you go in right there and you pay it off right away because it saves you 10 cents on each gallon. You're going to use it each time. It's a discount card, right?
Right.
But you've been using it for 20 years just like that. You know what that does? They're going to look at you and be like, "Ooh, doggy, Jimmy's a payer. We like him." I got a nuts kitty here. He is romping around. Anyway, so the ages of your newest and oldest accounts, as well as the average length of all of your credit accounts, make up the length of your credit history. The longer, the better. You can influence this factor with a credit card by keeping old accounts open and active. And of course, be patient, because building a great credit score takes time. Types of credit in use refers to the mix of different types of credit accounts you have, like a student loan or an auto loan or a mortgage. Diversity is preferable to only one type of account. But this factor has a small influence on your FICO, so you shouldn't go out of your way to take on interest accruing debt. When you apply for a new credit card, your score may take a small hit to combat this. So avoid applying for credit cards or several cards in a short period of time, especially if you haven't been building your credit for very long. Now let's say you've been building your credit for a while and you have a great payment history, or you think you do because you have never missed a payment. You have never been late on a payment. But, so you decide, hey, you know what? I want to consolidate my debt. I'm going to apply for another credit card. Let's say your credit score is 700. Chances are, even though you've never been missing a payment, if you haven't been paying a large amount towards the principal of the balance, to where for a $3,000 credit card, you have less than $1,000 on there, you probably won't get a new credit card. And here's what's going to happen. Your credit score is going to take a hit. Why is that, Jimmy? Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because they're going to say, hey, your payment history is great, right? Makes up 35% of your FICO score. You've been paying great, but you haven't been paying enough. And you have now your credit utilization. You have, out of a $4,500 credit limit, you still owe $3,000 on that card. Well, you're trying to get more credit. Why? Are you going into debt? They're going to see you as a risk. So it's better to build your score, have multiple cards with $4,000 on each card as a limit, and use $500 on each card. That way it's manageable debt. Even though it's the same amount of money that you owe at the end of the day, you have more of a credit line. Does that make sense?
I guess.
Okay. How do you calculate your credit utilization? Well, there are two different utilization ratios that FICO pays attention to. So your line item utilization and aggregate utilization. Line item utilization is the percentage of a specific card's limit that you're using. So if you have a credit card with a $5,000 limit and your current balance is $1,000, you have a 20% line item utilization percentage on that card. So what does it mean? It means you're a good risk. Because you can borrow up to $5,000 or spend up to $5,000, but you have now only used $1,000. That means you've used 20% of it. So you use 20% line item utilization percentage on that card. What is aggregate utilization? Aggregate utilization is the total utilization across all of your cards. So let's say you're that college student with 3 credit cards. Card A has a limit of $500 and a balance of $120. So you've only used $120 out of the $500. Card B has a limit of $3,000 and a balance of $200. So you've only used $200 out of the $3,000. Card C has a limit of $1,000 but a balance of $800. So you've used $800 out of the $1,000. Your aggregate utilization would be just under 25%, which is within the acceptable limits. How did I get to that 25%, Jimmy? Because
I give up.
Because all of the cards, the limits on the cards, card A, B, and C, 500, 3,000, and 1,000 come up to 4,500, right? $4,500. 1,000 plus 3,000 plus 500. That's 4,500. And the balances on the cards are $800, $200, that's 1,000, and $120. So that's $1,120. So 4,500 divided by 1,120 is 4 point, what is it? About four. But the percentage, if you were to take 1,120 as a percent of 4,500, it should give you 25%. Oh, instead of doing percentage, what did I do? I did multiplication, because of course my head is hot. So 4,500, 1,120. Oh, sorry, Jimmy. Okay. So anyway, when you're doing that, right? 25. It's just under 25%. Basically, 4,500 divided by 4 is, what is that, Jimmy? Do the math for me really quick.
I didn't hear the numbers.
4,500 divided by 4.
It's about
1,125.
yeah.
So you're talking about 1,120 being approximately 25%. Okay, so a quarter. So your aggregate utilization would be just under 25%, which means aggregate just means bringing everything together or adding it all up, right? Consolidating everything. Both line item and aggregate utilization ratios are important when it comes to your FICO score. Keep both of them below 30% at all times to favorably affect your credit. So is getting a credit card a good choice? If you are me, Val, then a credit card is an excellent choice. Because you're going to be monitoring it at all times, you know. So basically, if you're responsible, yes. If you don't know if you can be responsible, a credit card can be a pitfall. Before you get one, make sure you know who you are and how you will use it. Excuse me. So that's all the time we have tonight on Talk Time with Val. Join me again next week for another scintillating episode where we'll be talking about rappers. Until then, be well, be safe, and